Well, welcome all you guys, everybody watching and everybody involved to the first episode of the Fireside. That's what we're going to call this little podcast. In lieu of regular meeting over the next couple of weeks, while everything in the world starts to get sorted out, we're going to be doing a weekly podcast, and it'll either be on our YouTube or Facebook, or hopefully starting the next couple of weeks, we're going to start live streaming it on our Facebook page. I'd like to introduce Tyler, our student advisor, Brittany, the chief newsletter editor, and Damian, the current president of the Entrepreneurship Club, and myself, I'm Ian, the event planner. So I want to jump right into entrepreneurship itself. What does entrepreneurship mean to you guys? And this is just kind of an open question. What is the word? You know,
Do you have anyone you want to start?
I you seem pretty keen. We'll get started. Do you, Tyler?
Okay. I think the dictionary definition of entrepreneurship is starting and running businesses, but in my experience, it's a lot more abstract than that, and it's really come down to figuring out what you want to happen and figuring out how to make that happen, whatever that is. If that's starting a business, great, but entrepreneurship's a great example of a separate area where that can be applied.
You see entrepreneurship?
Yeah, are you familiar with that?
Yeah. What's entrepreneurship?
It's a term. Essentially, it's working within an established organization with that entrepreneurial spirit or entrepreneurial edge. You can think of this with companies launching new initiatives, but I think even very rigid positions have the opportunity to improve and expand in some ways. And so, as the entrepreneur in this case, figuring out how you can make that happen, even if there are strict rules, would be very entrepreneurial.
So that actually, let me look up. Gotta look up who it is, but it reminds me of a an old racing driver, and he was a car constructor. He worked for GM, and then he ended up doing a spinoff, a racing team as a spinoff, and he would do crazy stuff like make 7/8 scale model cars, so like they weren't legal, but you couldn't tell that he was cheating, and so he's like this super
Okay.
like there's a super entrepreneurial minded, but he worked within an organization, so it was neat applying those skills to a larger ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really needed, like in so many different areas, because there are just like some organizations are really, really big and clunky and slow moving, and those are the ones that you'll hear like they talk about, oh, introducing our new so entrepreneur, chief entrepreneur, because like you kind of sometimes you can't just establish, okay, everyone, we're gonna be more entrepreneurial. Maybe you can, but like sometimes you need to establish an individual who is like guiding the organization is like making it from clunky to like, all right, we're gonna change things up here. Yeah, yeah, entrepreneurship's interesting.
Smoking Eunuch was the guy. He was an executive in GM, and then went on and built race cars. But he did exactly that. He like started within the system, and he like honed all these skills. And instead of going and completely starting his own business, he used the tools that were given to him. So
Yeah.
really fascinating. What about you, Damian? What's
Um,
entrepreneurship?
I mean, Tyler definitely hit it on the nail. It's really looking at a landscape that is new, right? And then recognizing the opportunity within that landscape and being able to effectively take risks, seeking that reward that you see. So it, it's like somewhat like you're placed into an environment, right? There's business here, people doing stuff here. It's like as an entrepreneur, you see something about the world that you could put this entity or you could provide this thing, right, in the world, and it would cause significant value, and you're mapping out and
You're looking for
executing
a vacuum.
that. Yeah, that's a nice way to put
Yeah.
it.
There's a big thing that people do when they're talking about entrepreneurship or starting businesses, they'll just go to parties and whatever people
Like
are
on
complaining
entrepreneurship.
about, whatever people are complaining about, they'll make something about it. So like
Yeah.
if somebody's like, I wish that whatever, that's their new product.
Right,
I like
that's
that.
it. Like
Yeah.
pain points. Oh,
Looking for
yeah.
problems, yeah, in a good way.
Inputs. Well, yeah, and that's part of that problem solving is you have to have problems to have problem solving. What do you think, Brittany?
The way I see it, so obviously you can't have entrepreneurship without entrepreneurs. You can't have the act of creating businesses without the people doing those acts. So to sum it up in one word, which I think describes it pretty well, is just grit. You don't need to be the smartest person on the planet or have the greatest idea, but if you have the ability to sit down and learn and do whatever it takes to make your vision happen, that's a solid entrepreneur in my eyes.
And that's something I think is especially relevant right now. Is like it's going to be easy to fall into a lot of bad habits, being stuck at home all day, not
Mm-hmm.
having any motivation, and like there really aren't a lot of opportunities. But if you can really practice some of the perseverance and some of the skills, then I think the four of us have a pretty solid chance of coming out of this with some good motivation and some good opportunity.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Jump on that. There's not a lot of problems you might run into physically, but the whole world takes place online now, and there's a lot of problems with any kind of technology. Just paying attention to, like you said, anything that people complain about, but I think also get good at recognizing in yourself when you start just getting frustrated with the way something's done, and start jotting that down. And it's really kind of a muscle you start to grow or build, um, or strengthen rather. More that you look for things that you're frustrated with that you think could be done better, whether you know how to do it or not. The better you'll get at recognizing opportunities.
Yeah. It kind of going off that point you said, we're like, was it an exercise of going to a party and hearing what people complain about? I mean, everyone's indoors now, and the way that people mostly interact or party is through social media. And so on social media, I've been seeing people express their pain points, right, or the things that they hate a lot lately, and not even just about their general lives like they usually do, but now about the new problems that they're facing. About being in this digital world where we're having to meet and everything just shifting online. So in a way, even though we're all stuck inside, party's still there. Um, I guess it's just in the form of social media.
So what are you seeing? What are you seeing people complain about?
Memes about like Zoom, and all those.
So, yeah, Zoom's a lot of privacy concerns, which is why
That too, yeah. Um, I'm wondering how they're gonna deal with that.
well,
And
I
what
saw that
exactly is the? What were you saying?
they just hired the security director or security consultant from Facebook.
Okay.
Um, they just like poached him because they were having so much trouble with all of the privacy and data
Mhm.
collection
Really good move.
issues. Yeah,
I mean, was it Facebook having issues with their?
yeah, they took the guy that had the
Maybe. Yeah.
yeah.
But that is, I think I heard something about that. That a lot of tech executives, and like the big social media platforms, kind of just like hop around to like other big startups and other like they'll take someone from whoever was in Facebook, they'll like search for that person
Mm-hmm.
or Google, and they'll just recruit them, and then they kind of take the ship, and they still have that sort of that connection.
Which I think leads into another good point about entrepreneurship. I've thought a lot about my career and I've had a lot of different directions I've wanted to go, but I've always, maybe another, this is a stretch, but another way to talk about entrepreneurship is living or working on your own terms. And there's ways to do that when you don't work for yourself, or there's ways to do that without having to start your own company. And a lot of it has to do with figuring out where you're uniquely valuable, finding a company that'll support the way you want to work and the way you want to live. And as you develop your skills in a unique, call it a niche of those spaces. For example, here, social media, or I guess cybersecurity of large networks like Facebook or Zoom, being able to run those from that, would you say it was the security officer, the chief security officer or something like that, from that level? It wasn't that?
It was something. I was just saying. It was,
Yeah, gotcha.
Something. I don't know.
Being able to run it at that level is a very niche skill. And so you'll see, just like you said, Damian, and it doesn't just happen at the C-suite level. It'll also happen throughout the chain, where people develop these skill sets and companies will start really competing to get their work. And when you find yourself in that position, you're in a really good position because everybody wants you, and you're very much in demand, and you can start to make your own demands in terms of the environment and ways in which you work. I've thought a lot about that myself.
Especially, I would say even more rare now because everything's getting a lot more specialized. Every company has their own unique way of doing things, and it's very particular. And if you can get to a point where and that's where the ability to learn comes in, is that you might be the best chief security officer at Facebook, but you might only be familiar with the way that they use their servers, or the way that they communicate their data, or this and that.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all good? Well, so I guess since we're still recording, do you guys want to jump into so we can talk about the state of the Entrepreneurship Club, or we can continue on with entrepreneurship and talk about maybe some affected industries or some significant creations as of late? Okay.
I think I could kind of see where Ian was going with that, kind of touching up on versatility of employees, and especially with everything going on right now, some people are laid off, and they're going to need to maybe reach out, find another job if they can. So they're going to need to broaden their skill set and keep an open mind about, everything going on, and be able to learn to deal with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Generalism, being a generalist is very powerful, especially today.
Yeah, and versatility, that is a huge asset, not only in the work field, but also to universities, for college students. If you're applying to another college, even if you're transferring, they want to see what all you do, what you're involved in, what you've done in the past, and all this stuff. They want a well-rounded character, which is also why they make you take generals. So you're not just specified in one certain area, you have more broader knowledge. As annoying as generals are, but they do serve somewhat of a purpose.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate, there's a point where it gets tedious, but I appreciate that there's some willingness to instill some of the, liberal arts or sciences or some of those things in every facet of education. What do you guys listen?
Just watching Damian struggle here to get back on board. Anyway, I got it out. We're good.
Good, Damian?
Can you hear us?
I can hear everyone now.
Good.
Yes, who's Zach?
It'll turn it up if you hit Alt F4.
Thanks, Eminem.
I'm glad someone responded to that.
Would you stick out of his? Oh boy. All right, so I'll move on a little bit, and start talking about, who are some big entrepreneurial characters. We talked about Smokey Yunick a little bit, but who are some of the big historic, significant impactors do you guys think in entrepreneurship?
I want to jump in with Charles Kettering first. So there's all the obvious ones that everybody's going to name: Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Bezos, but Charles Kettering. So I might butcher part of this. I've only heard the story secondhand. I need to do some reading myself. But
Boy, I love me some Charles K. Yeah, you get going.
well, you're the guy for this.
Go here. I'll just sit here and roast you is all.
Okay, that's great. I'm used to it. So back in the early 1900s, when NCR, National Cash Register, was a pretty well established company here in Dayton, Ohio, Charles Kettering brought electricity to the cash register, which changed the way point of sale systems worked. And probably a bad term for it. Changed the way cash registers worked. Um, really revolutionized retail. And that helped to propel NCR to the giant that it is today before they unfortunately relocated their headquarters back in the late 2000s.
South Carolina. Yeah, they're down to Raleigh, I think.
I thought it was Atlanta, but
It's somewhere down south. I know they have a lot of tax breaks for a lot of companies that we just don't offer up here.
butchers. And anyway, yeah, but Charles Kettering bringing the electricity to the cash registers. Why we have Kettering, Ohio.
Yeah, and well, he did a lot for God, he did a lot in automotives. He did he made the automatic starter,
Oh, right.
electric starter. He did just a lot of inventive, and
Is he a part of Delco?
I think so. I think he's
Okay.
gonna.
Dayton Electric.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look him up a little bit here, but
Yeah, and just
NCR headquarters.
little fun fact. A couple years ago, we had the head of GM's innovation spoke at the Dayton Startup Week.
It's Atlanta. You're right. It was Atlanta.
And Delco. So GM a little while back bought Delco, and Delco is what is now GM's innovation department, or whatever you want to call it, innovation arm. That's what they call it. They called the gentleman I'm talking about the head of innovation.
So that's really kind of fascinating when we're talking about the entrepreneurship. Is like that's like go have your sandbox.
Yeah.
And
Be a
you have
question
the
I got.
resources of a multi-billion-dollar company.
Right.
But you get to have that entrepreneurial mindset.
It's really a new landscape that you're kind of in. Like, because there's entrepreneurship just in the world, just like as an independent person, like you, any person can be entrepreneurial and start a company or start bringing something out into the world, right? But it's just you don't go about it in the same way, or at least you don't start to go about it in the same way when you're within a company. It's just you're kind of navigating not through. I don't know. It's just interesting being within a company.
There's
And
a lot of walls that are perceived to exist. Um, I hate to use myself as a story, but this is my experience with that, and when I really became aware of how much you can break those walls down. And I'll be very quick with it. I worked at FedEx as a package handler, and when you have those companies like a FedEx stature, they have very rigid processes for how things are done. You have, package handler, they're assigned this truck, and they load the packages this way from this time to that time. Then they go home, and everybody's happy. I noticed, especially as it was a new facility, we were having a lot of growing pains. And the manager for my line, as they called it, was just the conveyor belt where all the trucks were parked by, he would just make adjustments. He'd have one person move from, and you don't have to know what these terms are. I just don't know a better way to explain it. But move from home deliveries to go up and split, and then they'd bring the splitter would come around and help load a truck because that person in that truck had to go to the bathroom. But there's no real good way to build a procedure for that because it depends on where the package is going today, who's behind, who's ahead, and so you need somebody there making these decisions. And I noticed he would do this. One day we ran into one of those issues, and actually it was a recurring thing. So I kind of had it with these issues because it was stressful and everybody was getting frustrated. And he wasn't around to help, and no fault of his own. He had a lot of responsibilities. So I just asked people like, "Hey, can you move over here and um, fill in?" And I made the adjustments the same way I observed my manager doing that. And then after doing that for a week, it was a Monday. I come in and he tells me to go ahead and grab a radio. And so I figured he was trying to tell me, go ahead and radio him when this stuff breaks down, and stick to your spot, which is fair. That's how these systems work, right? But fortunately, I just jokingly asked him. I was like, "Okay, you want me to call you instead of doing what I was doing?" He's like, "Oh no." He's like, "That's your job now. You're gonna go around the whole shop, the whole floor, the whole whatever it is facility, and I want you to find those areas where things are breaking down and make those adjustments. We're gonna call you a roamer." And it was actually, I was only there for a few months. So toward the end, we had somebody come in to inspect. They might have come in after I left, but I remember having a conversation where they told me, they actually kind of apologized and told me they'd have to put me on a truck for a minute because that roamer position doesn't exist. And they're going to get knocked points if corporate comes in and sees me doing what I was doing. But it was still making the facility run better. So they said, for now, that's how it's going to work. We're going to work with this guy, and we're going to try to work this up the chain and try to get this to be an official position because it's really increased our efficiency here. So that's just my experience in that kind of corporate world, breaking down those barriers. And it really started with just being willing to take my licks for, call it insubordination at its worst, or just I don't know, audacity at best, and to just give it a shot. It worked out really well. But to do that, you really got to understand the system you're in and the impact you're going to have, or you're going to mess it all up.
I really like that. That's a good story.
And it's just making up something that wasn't there before. That's what it is. It's like there are gaps, there are vacuums, like we were talking about, that just exists. That's just part of the world because nobody's completely got it figured out yet.
And the world's always changing. So even if
Yeah,
somehow we
yeah.
were
Even
able
if
to
you
figure
once
it
you
out,
as soon as you get it down to a T, the game, the a pandemic comes through and completely shuts down all the production in the country. You know,
yeah,
because I mean
2020.
this is a big. I mean this is good, and this is gonna have a lot of lasting, um, financial and economic impacts, and so it's gonna be really weird to see what it's gonna look like in 5 years. Because
Absolutely.
I reckon a lot of people are not going to want to, or just straight refuse to go back and go dress up and drive 30 minutes and sit in traffic and walk into the office to sit down at their desk and work on their computer. That's what they're doing
Anxiety,
right now.
feeling claustrophobic. Yeah, it's a rough one.
Because you can go and do a desk job at home, and they told us that you can't do that for years, and now you just can.
so it's one thing that I'm finding super interesting is Google Trends. Right? Have you guys used Google Trends at all?
Yeah.
No.
I'm still figuring out how to use it. There's this thing I was gonna read on it. Google has a lot of resources for, I guess, just like analyzing the market. They have this thing called Market Finder, Google Trends, and all this. And Tyler, you told me about Market Finder. Um, but you can, for Google Trends, for example, you can go on there and type in a word. You type in face mask, you'll see, and it looks at, you can categorize it by image searches, shopping searches, or just overall searches in general. And you'll see, like, over the time of this time to this time, like, it dramatically increased. And you'll see that for things that are apparent, but then you'll also see that for things that weren't apparent. Um, and that kind of, I guess it's a physical representation of how much the world is really changing when you're stuck inside and you can't really see it. Maybe you're not seeing that ghost, that store that's just shut down and no one's in there, but you can see
Hmm.
that through the graph, that people are looking up paper online, and it's
There you go.
right,
There you go.
yeah.
The interest goes from 10 to 100.
It,
Are you guys seeing this?
even and then you can even look at it by the region. And so why was Hawaii so high? You know, and then you can start making, and you do further research based on, you know, assumptions that you begin to make. Um, I find it really interesting to look at this stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Stop sharing. Yeah, it's definitely strange to see how little everybody was kind of prepared for something crazy. Because it's been this big discussion about, making sure you have an emergency relief fund, making sure you have savings up, and it was just kind of like this abstract and surreal thing until it was like until you really needed it. Like you didn't take it seriously until it was actually a problem.
Right.
I was gonna ask what your thoughts were.
Huh?
I was gonna ask what Brittany's thoughts were on the current situation, how it's gonna impact the
That's going to impact what?
landscape market or way of life.
Um, well, I think obviously online markets are going to skyrocket. But then you also have to think when companies are shut down. I mean, I find it hard to believe that they're just sitting around doing nothing, um, especially from an entrepreneurial standpoint. They're probably sitting down, coming up with different ideas, saying, okay, so when all this is over, how how are we going to make this better? If it were me, if I had a company, I would be taking this time to figure out how to improve my business and get all those details planned out so that when this is over, you just hit the ground running and up your sales if you're in sales. You know what I mean? So, because this entire time you're not making money, so you're going to want to think about other ways that you can improve so that when you get back, you can make a lot of money and kind of balance out the months that you lost from COVID-19.
That's gonna be burning
Due
our
to
minds the rest of
COVID-19?
our lives.
I mean, this is gonna, financially, like both in like markets like actual P2P and B2P markets and like
Mm-hmm.
financial markets, this is gonna have lasting impacts for a year at least.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
I think the world's changed, and I really like Brittany your take on seeing this as an opportunity and less of a threat. I think it's the entrepreneurial spirit, right? It's figuring out how to roll with the punches and turn
I'm
those.
occasionally
Yeah,
optimistic.
we're gonna have to get you. Can you speak up just a touch or get your mic a little bit closer? Yeah,
Gotcha.
perfect, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
One really interesting thing is how this is going to impact enrollment in colleges, specifically whether online classes will become far more popular. Um, 'Cause I think a lot of people, myself included, were just not interested in the idea of taking a class
Rough.
online.
This is rough. I'm not about this.
Yeah,
I'm okay with the pass fail.
my
Yeah.
there we go. Yeah. But my thing is like I don't believe that the current iteration of online education is going to maintain that way, right? And in this sort of like what we're in now is like it's going to be a catalyst for how that could then evolve. Because as you get more and more adopters into technology, you're going to be able to get more and more insight into what it could be. And so this is that time where you're going to get a massive amount of people signing up for online classes in the fall, just because why not? Or maybe because that actually would benefit them and they're not as afraid of it because there's this increased or increasing infrastructure for it.
Have you guys had any professors stream classes?
Like having them live stream.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they
Yeah.
use? What are your guys' use for that? Because I know my sister, almost all of her profs are doing. They have Zoom at Cincinnati, and she's almost all of her classes now have a live stream. I have one prof that did it, and he doesn't make it necessary. He just puts the video online too.
Records it and then you can watch the recording. Okay. I have two.
You have two to do it. So do you think that that's going to be more of the online infrastructure moving forward?
I don't know if it turns out to be this thing where normal classes just decide, hey, every normal class we're just going to record it, and then maybe that's. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, I have most of my professors that will do a video, but like having a stream, I mean, something where you can pipe in and put it in chat or even, ask the professor a question like you would in class.
We have something called Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, or Blackboard Ultra or something. I haven't.
Live Ultra.
That's it. I have no experience with it. I think that sounds like it.
I have a class on there.
You think of it?
It's not bad. It's not bad. It's obviously not more efficient than face to face, just due to Wi-Fi connections and everything going on. If everybody is muted and the professor's connection is good, then you're usually okay. But it's once you get the collaboration going and the professor wants feedback, that's when it gets a little messy. Presentations are choppy and I would just rather my professors record a lecture in their office and then post the recording and learn that way. As far as live streaming, I'm not a huge fan.
I've had a couple presentations during this time. Not myself. Well, I will be next week. But I've had classmates who have had presentations, like right from the get-go in this. And that was really, really interesting to watch, just kind of on the ground running, and having to coordinate with a whole bunch of like 4 students speaking, and then people asking questions, even the class asking questions, and it worked surprisingly well. But for the most part, classes are definitely just smooth if it's just the professor. There's not all this noise going around, or people accidentally like hopping up on there and talking. Yeah.
Right. Well, the nice thing about Pilot Live Ultra is there's a button that you can press that raises your hand. So you're not, you press a button and it virtually raises your hand. So you're not talking over people. Someone knows when you have something you want to say. Obviously, you can always type in the chat, but that's on several other platforms as well. But Pilot Live Ultra it's efficient. I like it for that purpose.
So are you guys adapting okay to all this? Like,
it didn't change much for me. I was already in online classes
entirely?
and stuff, so yeah. I like online classes.
I was watching a recorded lecture, or not a recorded, a live lecture, like in my backyard, and like I just kind of like paused for a second, kind of got zoned out, like sometimes I do in class, and I just kind of realized I'm not at Wright State right now. I'm in my backyard, and my professor's talking to me. It was just this really this weird realization about just like what situation I was in. And I think I like it in the sense that like I can take this valuable just education that I'm receiving really anywhere in the world now. Like that idea is like exciting. Um,
Hmm.
Flip side, like it is a change, right, from this traditional sit in the classroom, which I'm so accustomed to. And so I kind of adapting. I'm adapting, I think, yeah. I'm
I,
beginning to
I'm
see what I
I'm
like about it.
I'm finding it hard to stay just disciplined, stay on track, get everything done on time.
Right.
Um, I don't know. What do you guys do to like? Do you guys have certain times of the day where you're like, all right, we're gonna do like a 10 to 5, like a work day?
I'm just kind of always on, honest with you.
Yeah.
If I'm awake, I'm responding to emails, texts, pings on Basecamp, any sort of contact. That part in and of itself, I'm not too upset about. It works all right for me. What I need to do is get a good process for when I first wake up. Um, Generally, I'll roll out of bed and sit down at my computer and see what I missed, and then start working 5 minutes after I woke up. There's no like personal time. You know, I really like to practice mindfulness. I like to work out, and these are things that I've really just let slip. And I've been doing a better job of getting back on top of them, but I need to make more of a point of doing so. In terms of how this impacted me, this definitely, my workload absolutely increased when this happened. And I've still been playing catch up. Hopefully, in the next week or so, I'll be pretty well caught up on that, but we'll see how it all works out.
I went for a run for the first time, and that was just it's weird because you have more time, but then you have like less time almost. You have more time in the sense that like the class that you have is recorded, and so maybe that time when the class was is a little inconvenient for the day now, and so that hour time period, maybe you go for a run, and then when you get back and you energized, okay, hey, I'll watch that recorded lecture now. But maybe if instead, because just the structure of your day, had to be on campus and then do this, and that, and it just the shape of my day has changed in ways that I like and I don't like, and that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a matter of priorities and figuring out a schedule that works for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, I'm getting stuff done. I just don't, I'm not watching every video. I'm not completely on top of everything. I'm not, reading all the memos and stuff. And like, but I've been doing a lot of other productive stuff. Like I'm exercising more. I'm starting to read. I've been doing a lot of like mindfulness and some meditation and stuff. And like I've been making a lot of progress individually, but not as much academically. I don't know if it's just a really advanced form of procrastination or what, but like,
I like that. That's right.
I want to mention, I apologize for being a little bit rude here. Speaking of always on, I have a lot of work, urgent things going on. I can stay in this call. I just got to respond to a few things real quick. So yell my name if I
no
miss something.
problem. We're hitting like 40 minutes or so. We're getting close. Um, Getting close to start to think about it. So no urgency. So I'll probably wrap up with one or two more things. Brittany, you never said what do you do? What have you been doing?
So a lot of my time has been spent volunteering for the Alzheimer's Association. I'm a development intern, so just been making a lot of retention calls, letting people know that we're still here, because that's the major concern. All businesses are shutting down, and we provide some resources that are necessary for people, for them and their loved ones. And, there has been some concern of, are you guys still open? Can we still utilize what you guys provide? And, so I've been making phone calls. Yes, we're here. Some people like it, some people don't. Have been hung up on a few times. Mainly because I'm pretty sure they thought I was a telemarketer, which I don't blame them. Once you say the same thing over and over again, you sound pretty automated. So I've been working very long days doing that, schoolwork, and trying to start a company and everything. So it's been stressful. Very long days.
So you're trying to start a company?
Yeah, Tyler and I and our friend Kim are trying to start something up.
Press the right venture next week.
Yes.
Oh, all right, right on.
3:30.
When?
So 16th at 3:30. We're gonna be live streaming.
Did we ever figure out what platform we're gonna be using?
Yeah, so that's gonna be using WebEx, and it'll be streamed on Facebook Live.
All right,
Ian, do you read my newsletter?
Well, you see,
Oh, there it is.
tribute. I
I
helped
feel
made it. I helped
offended.
make
Now.
it. So, actually,
You're in
no,
the
I
meeting.
do. I totally did, and I was just trying to peddle it, because not everybody that's gonna watch this has read it.
Would have been great if you thought of that a little bit sooner.
Yes.
So, all right, thanks, guys. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh man.
Weekly newsletter will tell you what you need to know.
That's just a little free advertisement for it. It's all. So you guys have any I think I'm gonna start to think about it. You guys have any closing thoughts? Anything about the new way the entrepreneurial world is gonna start to move?
Yeah, a little bit. Not exactly on that. Do you mind if I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Not exactly on the note of entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship definitely falls under the umbrella. Earlier, you guys were talking about kind of the changes at school because of the COVID-19, and unfortunately, I had in my mind that I wanted to chime in, but I couldn't find the opportunity because of this. But one thing I've noticed is that because everybody's working from home and generally literally from their home, not a coffee shop or a co-working space, people feel a lot more human. Like all of my interactions have been a lot more genuine. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
I've been a lot more genuine, and that part I've really appreciated. I feel like I've gotten to know people a lot better, and I feel a lot more comfortable just being myself in a lot of any sort of correspondence. And I think that's going to be an impact that we see long term from this. I think that's one of those things. Yeah, once you kind of get comfortable exposing that and being just more personable instead of having that professional suit and tie and that same analogy, whatever, analogous with your personality, having that kind of professional vibe that you give off, and being able to let down your guard a little bit. It's hard to take that back, and I think that's a good thing.
So yeah, I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and normally you get a text from somebody from high school or something. You're like, what? Why are you? Like, who are you? We never talked in high school. And now I'm like, hey, thanks for reaching out. Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah.
It feels like there's a lot more community and
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It definitely is. I actually got added to a group chat from some. I used to live in Washington State, and I got added to a group chat of the kids that I went to elementary school with.
No way.
That was really interesting.
yeah.
So yeah, people are getting connected in a lot of different ways that I think are in a good direction. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the Buddha said suffering brings compassion. So we're kind of going through this mass international trauma together, and there's a lot of linking arms and pushing through to come out the other side.
There's a lot of growth.
The real question is it gonna stay?
God, I sure hope so, man.
You know what I mean?
Ways to make it stay.
Some of it. Yeah, that's fair. You probably won't be exactly the same, but there'll be a push in the right direction.
I feel like I say that after everything now, but I do agree entirely.
That's all you guys got?
Yeah.
That Sounds like something to end on. All right. Well, I'm here with you guys. All right.
Here with you
All
guys
right,
too.
everybody that's decided
Really
to
watching.
tune
I'm
in.
here with you too.
Yep. Anybody in here listening or watching? So this is going to be on. I think I'm going to talk to John, not John who's Tyler, but other John. To be clear, Tyler's first name is John. That's why it says John Rupert and it's little. Because that's going to be there on that video. You're going to have your little name that doesn't say Tyler.
I'm
Our
impersonating
John
somebody.
is in charge of the social media presence. So we're going to be putting this out on, I think, probably our YouTube, links on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of our strong social media. And yeah, there it is. Well, that's the right idea. All right. Stay healthy. Wash your hands. Comment, contribute. I think that all of us are going to do our best to go through and answer some of your guys' questions if you have anything. So
Yeah, if you don't mind, throw the club's email in any sort of notes that you have with this video. And when you send that email, it'll go to all of us actually. So somebody will answer you.
yeah. All right. Well, we'll look forward to talking to all you guys. I had a really nice chat with all you guys, and stay healthy. Do all your work. I'll try to do all my homework today. We'll talk to you guys. Talk to you guys when I do. All right.
Have a good one. Thanks for organizing this.
Thank you, and thank everybody
Yeah.
for watching, and thank everybody for joining.
Thank you guys.
All right. Bye, guys.